What is up, guys? Welcome back to another I'd Popcorn for That movie review. I'm Chris,
I'm Nick.
and today we're here to talk about the new live action 2023 remake of The Little Mermaid. So, retelling of the sort of the beginning of the Disney Renaissance, them kind of the animation department kind of coming back into their own. So, I'm gonna send it over to you. What do you think about this movie?
I think I was pleasantly surprised going in with zero expectations of this being a good movie, but it's basically just a retelling of the animated version live action with CGI. So it was a good story overall. I thought the acting was pretty good. The musical numbers were good for the most part. Um, yeah, I was surprised that I liked it as much as I did.
I think I think Ariel. Uh, I'm gonna have to be reminded of her name.
Halle Bailey.
Halle Bailey, man, I think kind of standout role, and maybe like could potentially be like a star-making performance because she's like known for her, as far as I know, known for her music way more than acting. If she's done acting before, I'm not aware of it. I mean, I
I'm not aware of her music or her
I should have looked
acting.
into it. Yeah, her and her sister Chloe had maybe they're still recording music, but they had like this breakout album a few years ago, like an R&B album that did
Okay.
really well, and everything. But yeah, I was expecting, a lot of times when you pick people, I'm not saying they did this, but like when you do a musical, sometimes they'll pick somebody who's a really amazing musical performer, and you're not really, you know, you can't always have both.
Yeah,
And
I
I
feel
think she
like
did as good as you could really do with the story. I mean, she's the person I had the least complaints about. I'll say that.
yeah, and to be fair, I a lot of it for her was just singing. Like there wasn't too much acting, I guess, but
Well, I think same with the original, and I will say I did watch the original 1989 Little Mermaid, just a couple days ago, so I do have like a little bit fresher perspective on how the two
mhm.
compare, or whatever. But yeah, I mean, in the original and in this, you're asking the character to do a lot because like it seems like more than half. I don't know if this is really true, but feels like more than half the movie she's mute. So
Yeah.
you're asking them to do a lot with just their. And I think the interesting thing watching both for me was, this is the original movie is like 84 minutes long. It's not even an hour and a half.
Is it really?
And
I thought it was
yeah,
around an hour and a half. And that's where you're going to have to come in and help me is cuz this live action is 2 hours and 15 minutes, so I want to know where this extra time I know there were like two extra songs that weren't in the original movie.
I think there were actually like four
Were there
new
really?
songs, at
Okay.
least three, I think. But so the original movie is like not even 90 minutes long. This movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes, and where they lengthened it, I can't believe I'm saying this because in my experience, and both neither of us have seen a whole bunch of the Disney live action remakes, so we are prejudging some of these just based on how the trailers looked or how we to be fair, like I have prejudged some of these movies without seeing
Mhm.
them, but just really hating the Lion King remake and hating the I I don't know about hated, but I really didn't like the Beauty and the Beast remake, and I thought, and that's like
Yeah.
one of the most classic animated. So between the Lion King, and so I didn't give the Aladdin one a chance, and you've seen a little bit of that,
I saw
and
a
maybe that
decent
one's
amount of
great.
it, and it was what I saw I didn't really care for. But for me, it's hard to replace Robin Williams as Genie. Like,
And I appreciate that they did not try to fully replace him with. But anyway, all that to
mhm,
say, going into this, I just think the times where they chose to lengthen it, I can't believe I'm saying it, are the right places to lengthen it. So like in the original movie, and I can't really fault the original movie for it. It is built for child attention spans, and
mhm.
maybe it's made for child attention spans more than this one is. I don't know, but
Well, yeah, because they're playing on nostalgia with these ones as well. It's not just a children's movie. They know people
right,
our age who grew up
grew up
watching
with it.
these movies are gonna come and see this movie. I mean, it
Yeah, I mean
did
the
118 million in the box office this weekend, or I think
yeah,
opening day.
I mean this original movie came out the year I was born, so like you are marketing to both people my age bringing their kids to this movie, and the occasional people like person like me that went alone to a movie,
Yeah.
The Little
Well,
Mermaid.
like I said, there's a lady sitting next to me dressed as Ariel, probably a few years older than me, like
Hmm.
mid to late 30s.
Yeah, I mean, people love the original, and by the way, I'll say this: rewatching the original, I'm not gonna say I was like disappointed. There's nothing wrong with that movie, but there's other like Disney classics that I've rewatched recently as well that uh, did a little more for me too. Like on top of just it holds up, but the animation's not like A plus plus plus. And
Yeah.
in my memory, it was like amazing. And there's moments where it's amazing, but there's moments where the animation's a little lackluster. Like it's a little quickly drawn through or something. Maybe they're like Disney's. I don't know what their budget was like in this because this was the movie that kind of brought them back. So
Uh-huh.
I don't know, but the big thing for me was like in the animated movie, you get this idea that she just sees this prince for a few seconds, thinks he's attractive. Now she's in love with him. Now she's obsessed with him. She's got to go. She's got to marry him. Like it all happens so fast, and to me, you don't really get a lot of character development out of the prince or what makes her like him so much, except that he's a human and he's like the only one on this boat that's not drawn goofy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody, all the characters are like drawn really goofy, and then there's this one dude that's drawn hot, and so he's the love it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it just felt like a little rushed,
So was
and
that
in
part
this
of
one
the
they
story that like they drug it out? Is that whole opening ship scene kind of?
not well, yeah, the opening. So it doesn't open with the ship scene
Mm-hmm.
in the movie. You meet the prince when she meets him.
Okay, yeah.
Uh, so that opening is an added thing, but also like just their love story and them getting to know each other. Like in the movie, it's mostly the kiss the girl scene and not a whole lot else.
Mm-hmm.
But in this remake, they add a lot to that, and I think as much as the Prince's song was like not bad, but it just doesn't stand out in my mind, and nobody's gonna remember that one, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
It's not done badly, but it's kind of superfluous, and I think most of us could agree that it didn't add a whole
Yeah.
lot. I mean, except that it gives him a little more character. But I'm just glad that they fleshed him out a little more, and I thought he did a good job, and I wasn't expecting to really care about the Prince character.
Yeah, and that was the
You know.
Uncharted Water song where he's like singing about searching all the water to find her again.
Yeah, and I don't know if like the levels were off at my theater or something, but I could like some of the words I could hardly understand just with the accent and everything. I don't know, like I almost couldn't. I
Hmm.
felt like it could have been enunciated more, or something, like because like
It
the first time he says the chorus, I was like, "What was that?
yeah,
What were the words?"
it could have been. I don't. We actually ended up seeing it in IMAX, which I didn't intend
Oh,
on, but
so I'm
it
sure
was
your sound quality
pretty.
was good. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that definitely
super
made the
loud.
movie better as well. Just like during the big action-packed scenes and everything, like the rumbling of the seats, it was pretty nice.
But yeah, but I mean, besides for me, I don't know. You might have different takes on it. For me, besides Ariel, or Halle Bailey playing Ariel, I think the big standout was well, and I thought Javier Bardem did a good job, and he added some gravitas to it and made it pretty like somber and
Mm-hmm.
heavy and weighty, more so than like there's a little more like camp and goofiness to King Triton
Yeah,
in the original. I
like
mean,
for
he's like a domineering father figure, but he's not. This guy really made it. Javier Bardem has that like booming, crazy, deep voice, and
well, he's good in everything I've seen in him.
he's good in
Seen him
everything.
in,
I don't.
and there was a moment like when he's getting like real serious that I was like, oh man, this is giving me No Country for Old Men vibes. Like he's gonna
Yeah,
give
yeah,
somebody a quarter here in a second.
Brendo.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So he was good. I don't know about standout, but he's just always good, and I didn't
Yeah, I mean he didn't have like
I
a huge
expected him to
part
be
either.
good, and
Yeah.
uh, there was like an emotional scene with him that was effective and everything. He's good at doing that kind of thing. So,
Mhm.
and when you see somebody like that cry, it's like extra effective because they're this big, you know,
Mhm.
uh, stone wall of macho. But I was really surprised by Melissa McCarthy, and I'm not saying I think she completely nailed it 110%. Like it could have been. I still say I wish that they had taken some really like extreme personality drag queen and had them do. I think that just would have like really sealed the deal
Yeah,
for the Ursula character.
that would have been
But
good.
I don't usually like Melissa McCarthy that much, and I thought she did a lot better than I was expecting her to do, and I don't think it was like distractingly. I think she pretty much did what I was hoping
She
for
did
there. I don't know about you.
Ursula. Yeah, no, I thought she was. I'm the same way. Like, I've liked her in a couple of the things. Like Bridesmaids is the one thing I can think of that I actually like her in. But yeah, no, I think she did a great job at being Ursula. Like,
She did a good job,
yeah.
and she was able to like change her voice in ways I haven't heard her try to do before. You know, I haven't seen everything. I'm not usually a fan, but
And I don't know
uh,
if you know this or not, but was she actually singing, or do you think that was somebody else singing, and she was just
it kind of
lip
seems
syncing?
like most of the actors here were doing their own singing.
That's what I would thought. Yeah.
You could definitely tell that the Prince
Mhm.
and Ariel and um, David Diggs playing Sebastian, which we'll get into, I'm sure. But I know David Diggs because David Diggs is in a like I don't know about underground, but like kind of a
Clipping.
lesser known hip hop group, Clipping, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I like
And he's been
some of the
involved
songs.
in like all these musicals, Hamilton
Yeah.
especially, and all that. So you know he's doing his own singing, and I can for sure tell Aquafina is doing her own.
Yeah, right.
Can we? Maybe we should get into some of these secondary characters because
Okay.
the animal characters are worth talking about.
Yeah. So I don't know who voiced Flounder. I should have looked it up, but I feel like he
It's
had a
Jacob Tremblay, the little kid from Room. If you ever saw that,
okay. Yeah, I think I know who that is. I think he's been in
he's on a
some.
couple of
The name is
good
familiar.
boys or bad boys
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
that kid.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But I feel like Flounder played a very insignificant role in this compared to the animated version. Like he was in it, but I feel like he played a bigger part in the animated.
So he doesn't. As far as
Really?
I mean, as far as my very
Okay.
recent memory goes, that was something I left the animated one feeling like, wow, Flounder isn't really in this a whole lot.
Huh. I guess I'm mistaken. Then I
So
really remember him being a bigger part of it, but I guess he isn't.
I mean, maybe if I rewatched the animated one again, I would be like, oh, I guess he is in this a little more. But like this, Flounder's in some of the extra scenes that are in this live action one, and those scenes aren't in the original one at all. So
Yeah.
it is an 83-minute movie. There's not a lot of time dedicated to anyone that much. But I felt
Mhm.
like the more prominent role was, oh, what's the bird? I'm sorry, I
Scuttle.
can't. Scuttle. I can't believe I can't. Uh, but like Scuttle and Sebastian are much more prominent characters than Flounder, and in my memory, they're like all equal, if not like more Flounder and Sebastian. But it wasn't like that when I rewatched it to
I
me.
guess yeah. We both must have just misremembered this.
And I'll say, yeah, so I mean, I think Jacob Tremblay did a good enough job with at the voice acting and everything,
Yeah.
but he's not given a lot to do at all, and the character looks like a fish, very much like a fish with no ability to emote at all. I mean, I can't fault. It's like the animators were asked to make a very photorealistic fish, and they nailed it. But
Yeah.
it does take something away, and I'm not sure what I'm asking for either. Like, do I want them to do a
Well, I mean,
CGI like Pixar style animation of a fish? I don't know if that works either.
no, and like I mean, Sebastian. Yeah, Sebastian and Scuttle were both like pretty like normal looking animals as well. Like I guess Sebastian was a little bit more animated,
They
maybe.
they all three look pretty photorealistic.
Yeah.
It didn't really bother me with Sebastian. Uh, there was something about the Sebastian character that wasn't as fun or charming as the original. I don't think, but maybe
Okay.
that's just me. But I just felt like in this one he's really like a stickler, and he's really like kind of annoyed by Ariel a lot more. But when I look back at the other one, I mean, there's a lot of that too. So it's I don't know. Just in this one, he feels like a little more sick of his job and fed up with having to follow around this fish girl all day. I don't know. It's
Uh,
interesting.
yeah. I don't know. For me, I thought he was the best part of the movie.
You thought Sebastian was the best part of the movie.
Yeah, dude.
Well,
I thought,
okay.
but I like David Diggs and what I've seen
I
him
do like
in,
David Diggs. He
and
didn't do a bad job.
no, I like his. He did a good Jamaican accent for him, and like he's good at the singing, like Under the Sea. That was a great rendition of it.
Under
But
the Sea was good, and I thought that they like the visually like I was like worried in the beginning that they weren't going to go all out because they
mhm,
weren't going as all out as they did in the animated one, and then they really do. So it
mhm.
actually turned out really cool.
But even his little like one-liners and stuff that everybody else thought was hilarious in the theater, like made me chuckle a little. But like they were all the ones that came from Sebastian.
Kind of a little more directed at kids, for
Yeah, I
sure.
think so.
Um, and they did. I'll tell you one thing they cut out. I just remembered they cut out the whole Sebastian, the scene where the chef is like chasing him around the
Oh
kitchen.
yeah, I guess they kind of say that whenever he climbs up to the tower to get in, he's like, I could have gotten fricasseed. That's probably what they
Yeah,
cut out at that
I'm
point.
I'm a little surprised they didn't put that in there. I don't really know why, but whatever.
Especially since
Um,
you're extending the movie by 45 minutes.
yeah, to not put. I did think there were a couple moments in some of the extended scenes that like it did just for a moment it slowed down the pacing a little bit, but not
Mm-hmm.
enough to really bother me. Like, I didn't really have any. Well, I kind of want to touch on negatives for a minute because I have way more positives than I thought I had.
Okay.
But some of the negatives for me, I, well, it's a mixed negative. I do not like Aquafina typically, and she wasn't always bad here.
Yeah.
But I really don't like that scuttlebutt song that they added, dude.
I
That
don't, I
the
yeah, I
rap
didn't really
song,
care for it.
that was tough.
It felt really forced.
It's short at least.
Yeah.
That's about the only positive I have for that.
And
And
I can't really say
there,
I know her from much besides commercials I've seen for her show on Comedy Central. Like I don't know any of her music career or anything, her
well, for one thing, I really
voices.
didn't like Raya and the Last Dragon, and I don't know if you saw that. It's like a
Oh,
Disney
yeah, yeah, yeah.
animated.
No, I did see that. Okay.
She was the main dragon,
Yeah.
Sisu or C
It's just
something
been a
like that.
while.
I didn't like that.
Okay.
I think that's kind of like the main thing that stands out in my mind. But she's been on. I'm kind of drawing a blank.
Well, she's got her
She's
own
been on a
show on
handful of things.
Comedy Central too. That's like Nora Aquafina is Nora from Queens, and I see the trailer for that all the time, and I don't know if it looks funny or extremely unfunny.
But like I said, that's a mixed negative. She did it was
Mm-hmm.
better than I maybe thought, but that one song was like distractingly bad. And this, um, I thought she kind of turned the Kiss the Girl segment into like half annoying, and in the original movie, it's kind of just not annoying, and it's it is what it is. But she
Yeah.
kind of made that squawking part was annoying, and that's not in the original movie. Not that everything has to be like I said. A lot of what they did to extend this movie, I liked, and the most of the new songs besides the Scuttlebutt one didn't detract from the movie,
Mm-hmm.
so it's all good. But the and for some reason, like I don't know if I just got used to it or what, but at the very beginning, where I'm still apprehensive about this movie, not sure how I'm going to feel about it. At the very beginning, starting it off on the boat, I thought was a little bit of a like boring way to start it when the original I'm pretty sure. I mean, I just watched it. I'm pretty sure it starts out in the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, because I think it starts out with hey, like King Triton introducing the sister, the daughters, and then Ariel's not there, and it's like, oh, where's Ariel? And she's with her
Well, that might have
collection, and
happened first in the live action as well, and then gone to the boat. I feel like.
I thought it opened with just like waves in the ocean. That was like the very opening shot,
Oh,
and then
yeah. I think
we're
you
on the
are
boat
right.
with all the guys, and we meet the prince first before anything else,
I think you're right, actually.
and
Yeah.
then he drops the spyglass into the
Spyglass. Yeah.
ocean, and we follow the spyglass into the ocean, and that's when we're introduced to the ocean world
That's right. Okay.
and all that. Um, but a lot of the beginning is like shot for shot the same thing as the after once the spyglass has fallen into the ocean, like the whole thing of the flounder scene where they're exploring the shipwreck and she doesn't show up for this rehearsed thing, with the
Yeah.
sisters and everything, and they go and investigate the shipwreck, and the shark chases after them, and all that is like very much they're just pulling directly. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought they did a great job with it actually, because like that's a challenging thing to have a shark, like it's so cartoony, and to have a shark like chase you through a shipwreck and like be destroying the floorboards as it swims along, like they're doing so much that's like I can imagine the challenge of putting that, making that look realistic at all.
Yeah,
And
and
so
I
I
think
thought
they
they
did
did
a
a
good
good
job
job with
of it
that.
because I'm not a fan of sharks, and that really in
Yeah,
open
yeah,
water and stuff. So that really hit my thalassophobia slash shark phobia a little bit because it
yeah.
was it was good enough looking to where I was like, I don't really like this, but I was able to
And
make it through it.
I thought there, you know, it, I haven't seen Avatar: The Way of Water yet, but
Hmm.
I'm sure that handles underwater a lot better than this. But I thought they, for what we for what I would expect out of this movie, I thought everything was like really visually appealing and
Hmm.
looked nice, and the colors nice, and in that very beginning, it looked a little more. That's what I started to say earlier. In the very beginning, it looked a little more like CG. I know it's all CG, but like it looked very obviously CG to me at the beginning, and then I either got used to it or it got better later. I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but
and I think a lot of the CG for the most part was pretty good. I mean, I have to
mhm.
talk about a couple of negatives here in a minute,
it
but
didn't it didn't keep distracting me anyway.
no,
But
I thought it was pretty good. There was one thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I wanted to say that I felt like the palace definitely looked more natural, because in the animated version, isn't it like a big like white palace and stuff, and it looks more like regal than it does like a coral,
yeah,
like
they
a
took a lot of the whole story with the prince being like I don't think any of that
well, no,
like
I mean
having been adopted.
the underwater palace.
Oh, okay, okay.
Like it looked more like a natural thing that was formed rather than in the original movie. Isn't it like Atlantis is and it's like this white like big
You know,
castle?
I, I I'd have to go back
Okay.
and compare the two. I'm not entirely. That's not something that stood out in my mind as like a stark difference. So
Okay.
I'd have to go back and see. But I thought it was handled well. I mean, like to me, like I actually think as much as Aquaman is like a goofball fest,
Mhm.
I actually think they handled a lot of the underwater stuff well. And I thought this was like pretty much on par with that. Like I liked the way they didn't like mess too much with the way people sound underwater, which I
Yeah.
think is distracting when they do that. They didn't mess with like it didn't look like overly like wavy and you know what I'm talking about where they like
Yeah, yeah.
there's like a whole lot of distortion because you're supposed to be underwater, but it doesn't really look like that when you film underwater in real life kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there actually is a lot of that on the animated one. In the very beginning especially, like there's a way too much like are you sure you understand that we're underwater? Like they're like really making sure like the screen's all distorted and everything. And then every time anything, this was distracting, and it might be the most distracting thing about the animated one for me was that every time anything moves at all, it generates like a trillion bubbles. Everything's always generating tons and tons and tons of bubbles.
Right.
And I didn't remember that from when I was younger, but now like as an adult, I'm kind of like that's not how it works.
No, yeah.
You're not just constantly generating a ton of bubbles of oxygen,
And they didn't do that in this one, right?
and they did not do that in
They
this
did a
one.
pretty good job of the ocean being pretty still because they're underwater. They're away from the waves.
Well, let's get into your negatives because I don't have I
I
don't
mean,
have a ton. I think I have
no, I
more
don't either.
positives than anything.
I think that the scuttlebutt song I didn't really care for. Uh, I think one of the biggest negatives was probably the CGI towards the end got a little sloppy. Like whenever the big fight with Ursula,
When she gets
her
giant,
her giant like her face, they I feel like they tried to make it darker because they knew the CGI wasn't that great, and that could have
I
been
mean it's dark in the original too, but you when you did get a good look at the face, you
yeah,
could
it
tell
wasn't
they
great.
were covering up some pretty sloppy, and maybe they were rushed at the end or something. But
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Maybe it was that, or like I wouldn't say it's a budget issue since it's Disney, but
I
and
will say
also
it feels a little anticlimactic at the end, but the that was what I said about the original Disney one is that man, it feels a little anticlimactic. Giant Ursula is just there for like a few seconds, and then we stab her with a
you know,
big bow. And in this one, they add more tension to it actually. So
and maybe if you would have saw it in IMAX too, because that was pretty crazy.
no, in that well, that's the thing. In this one, there was a lot of tension there.
Okay.
In the original one, she just it happens so fast. They
Yeah.
poke her with the boat, and it's not even. There's more. This was a little bit more gruesome as far as like you can tell it really goes through her.
Oh
And
yeah, the mask
in the
goes in there.
the cartoon one, I feel like they didn't want to risk it too much, so it just like kind of pokes her and she's dead. you know.
Yeah.
So I like the handling of the end of Ursula in this movie more than I almost like this movie more than the original one. I mean, I almost want to say that. It sounds crazy.
I haven't
The thing
seen it.
is, you're cheating by starting off with the whole framework written for you. So I
Yeah.
can't really, it's like in a way, I can't give this more credit than, you can't give this more credit than the first one.
No, I mean
But
it is the same story with just lengthened out a little bit. It's
yeah,
just
very
it's the
much a
Little Mermaid.
retelling.
Yeah.
But I just thought, gosh, it was handled. It's definitely so far my favorite animated live action retelling of a Disney
And
anime. The
maybe I need to go
Pinocchio
back and
looks
watch.
terrible.
Well, Yeah, no, I watched the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio, which was
That was
okay.
great.
Yeah, it was good.
I liked that one a lot, but the Disney retelling of Pinocchio looked awful, and everybody seems to agree that it's awful, and I don't think I'll ever give it a shot. I've heard people say that the Kenneth Branagh Cinderella is all right, and
I don't think I saw that one either.
Some people like the Jungle Book movie that you said you have
I
seen, right?
I think, yeah, but I think I saw like when it came out too, so I was younger. I mean, not terribly young or anything,
Yeah,
but
it has been a while for that one. Yeah,
and I remember liking it okay.
maybe down the road we'll put ourselves through some of these, and hopefully we'll get some more like positive reactions that
Yeah,
than we think. But
but I do think another negative for me is kind of the story overall isn't that great of a story. Like they fall in love one day. Like she sees him,
so fast.
saves him.
She's
Like
got
she
three
barely
days to
sees her
kiss him.
face. 3 days. They spend in the movie. They spend one of those days together. The other
Hmm.
two, they like one of the first day they briefly see each other. Second day they spend together. Third day, Ursula tricks him by having Ariel's voice, and he thinks she's the girl who saves him, but it's the siren song. And then
Hmm.
that day ends. All the
Oh,
big
this whole
climactic
thing is
fight,
wrapped up quick. Yeah.
like 4 days, and then they're married, and it's just kind
Well,
of
and
like far fetched.
that's what I kept thinking about the original too. It is just it's a very like whew, like hey, let's meet Ariel. She's a 16-year-old princess of the ocean, and she sees the prince, and a few seconds later she's in love with him, and a few seconds later she's selling her voice to have feet, and a few seconds later they're in love, and a few seconds everything is just like
Yeah,
and we're killing Ursula, and it's wrapped up. I mean, 83 minutes or whatever is not.
it's not a long
You
time.
gotta we gotta get through this.
Hmm.
So I think it benefited from being lengthened, but even still, it is a simple story,
Yeah,
and
and
it's Hans Christian Andersen's
hmm
story from however long ago, and I don't think it's a very long story in its original form either. So
yeah, no, I think it's like it starts. I have the book right here, and I can look at the thing. I believe it starts on page 188 and ends on 211. So it's a
it's
33
not it's not a
page
complex one.
short story.
This is made for kids, and I think most stories made for kids. Not that they shouldn't be complex,
Well, I don't
but
know that this story, his story, that wasn't necessarily made for kids, but this Disney
I think it was
version, yeah.
probably made for kids in the 1800s. There was a
Yeah, it could have
different
been, but they're a tougher breed, I guess, maybe.
because if you read like the original Peter Pan, it's dense, and
Yeah.
that was written for or Alice in Wonderland. Like that
Well,
was written for one specific child.
because I know in the Hans Christian Andersen version of it, like whenever she gets legs, it's every time she's walking, it's like she's walking on knives. So
Right,
it's a
right.
little more
And like she can
of
dance.
a
It says like
trade.
she can dance better than anyone on earth, but every time she dances, it's like stepping on blades, like you
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
And
But
actually, there's a thing in the original story too about when she gives up her voice, it feels like a hot blade is going into her.
yeah, like it's
And
splitting through her
obviously the
body.
Disney one they left that
Yeah.
little factoid out.
Uh, yeah, other than that, man, I really like the movie. I don't really have too many more negatives besides the CGI being a little bad at those certain points in the story over like the song. What about you?
I think it did enough to justify. No movie has to exist, so it's
Yeah.
not like every movie has to justify itself. But I think this is like a standalone good movie. It doesn't take away from the original that this exists. You can watch both of them. I think there's something to get out of both of them,
Yeah,
and certainly if you have kids, I think it's worth watching both because they're gonna probably like them both. So
definitely.
this is one to recommend. Surprisingly,
I was, surprisingly happy with this movie. I definitely thought I was not gonna enjoy it. So, like going
it
into it, I was like, I really don't even want to go see this movie. And then
yeah
walking out, I
right.
was like, yeah, it was pretty good.
It didn't feel too long, even though it was like we said, much longer than the first one.
I
So
there was a part for me where I was like, all right, let's pick this up. Just kind of like when they were in the castle.
yeah, the moments were so brief for me, but yeah, there was a
Yeah,
couple moments where I was like, this is they could go ahead and get on with it a little bit here, but
yeah.
nothing. I expected worse than that because I already knew that it was a lot longer than the original going into
Hmm.
it. So
Well,
yeah. So what would you give this?
ah, man, I'm gonna have to go with like probably like a seven. It was pretty good movie.
Dude, I almost want to say 8. I'll give it a
Wow.
7.5. I'll give
Yeah.
it a 7.5. But just I almost want to give it an 8 for surprising me so much.
Yeah, I
I just
know.
really you really had to do a lot to have me leaving this thing happy.
Especially
The,
with like
the
the abysmal expectations we had for it.
the music's so good, and they don't necessarily have a track record for like certainly not improving on the music of the originals
Hmm.
with these live action remakes. And I think this at the very least was on par. And I think there
Yeah,
were moments where she was showing out a little bit more than the original one. So
I agree. Yeah.
crazy. So yeah, 7.5, 7, unbelievable. uh,
So,
yeah. So the next movie we're gonna review coming up is Fallen Angels by Wong Kar Wai, 1995 film. So be on the lookout for that one. If you liked what you see here and you got anything out of it, like it, subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends, hit the bell, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
all right. See ya.